Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. We recently caught up with Rory Rodriguez of Dayseeker. We talked about their new album, Dark Sun, and a few other things. This first aired on Tuesday, April 9th. Here you go. Well, tonight's special guest helped form the band Dayseeker nearly 12 years ago, I think. And over those 12 years, man, Dayseeker, they've become a band you can't miss, a band you cannot overlook. From their debut, What It Means to Be Defeated, to their most recent album number 5, in fact, Dark Sun. It is such a privilege to get to hang with frontman Rory Rodriguez and celebrate all things Dayseeker tonight. Rory, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate your time.
So is it hard or weird to think about Dayseeker being around for 12 years? Like is that a number that's kind of bigger than you thought you would have gotten to?
Yeah, it's I think it's just a reminder of how old we're all getting.
Yeah.
It definitely trip out sometimes when I think about just some of our earlier moments as a band and just the places we started at in, very DIY venues and DIY touring, and to be at the position we're at now is really cool. I feel like we're a very lucky group of guys. But yeah, it's a trip. It's been 12 years. I didn't even realize that till you just said it, honestly.
Sorry, man. I don't mean to bring that up. Is it when I hear a band like Dayseeker, when I listen to your music, and even just hearing you say that, like, I got to imagine that that's hard to believe and you're really grateful for where you've come from, but also there's some type of like you hang on to those roots, man, that DIY mentality, that work ethic, whatever you want to call it, even 12 years later, even 5 albums later, even successes later, it seems like you still hold on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it's where you came from. I mean, the DIY scene is where we existed for a really long time. So I think even when we're moving into the space of playing these bigger shows and getting these really, really incredible touring opportunities, it still sometimes feels foreign. Like, do we deserve this? I mean, we've obviously worked very hard, but it is just sometimes like the successful part of our careers is just a trip because it just feels very new and kind of foreign compared to what we dealt with for such a long time at the beginning of the band. But I mean, yeah, always going to have a soft spot for those early years of our band. I remember doing our first tour and playing to like 40 to maybe 150 people a night on a good night. And we were still just so excited because it was our first real tour and our first real experience in playing music across the country. So obviously would not be very excited now if that happened. But, we're really happy with where we're at right now, thankfully.
Yeah, well, and it probably won't happen. I mean, you're getting ready for your own headlining tour. You're also going to hit the road with Stained and Seether and I Prevail. And so it seems like you'll probably play to a few more than 50, 100 people.
Yeah, maybe just a couple more. But yeah.
Fingers crossed, man. Dark Sun, your latest album, kind of crazy to believe, talking about years and looking back. It's over a year old. Like, it celebrated its 1-year anniversary just a few months ago. How does it feel to have space between you and an album like that? Like, you're going to hit the road and tour and support it, but still you've got a bit of time from, especially since you started writing it, recording it, and then when you released it. How does that feel?
It feels good. It's, putting out records is a really scary process and experience because we spent, I think, around a year making Dark Sun off and on, and I'm very proud of it. But truthfully, in the initial release, it did feel like there was a decent amount of semi-disappointed fans. And it's funny. I mean, you get like 1,000 comments of people saying what a great record it is. And then you have 5 people saying it's not your best work. And for some reason, those 5 comments just really burn into your brain. And it was kind of a trip because the album came out on the first day of a tour that we were starting with Bad Omens. And first days of tours are always just very chaotic, getting everything together. And then this album is coming out. It's just making it like a really very busy, very stressful day. And I remember just reading feedback about the album and just seeing a few peak comments that people were not super excited with it. And then you completely start second guessing, like, did we change too much? Did we not? Should we have stayed closer to what we did in the past? All these questions just start running through your mind. But I really had to take a step back and realize that we were on this tour with Bad Omens and it was sold out every day of the tour, and the crowds were so good for us, really receptive to the new music. And it's something that I was talking to my buddy Cody, who plays in Wage War, is they've had similar experiences with music releases, and he was telling me, you have these like five people on the internet with really bad things to say, but then he said, you also have these fans who are just quiet, like they'll never comment on anything you post, but they love your band and they buy tickets every time you come through to see them. And you don't need to get so wrapped up in the opinions of these small groups of people who, somebody who feels comfortable enough to like go out of their way to like shit on a band, like, like publicly, probably,
Right.
probably says a lot, about them more than it does about us. But, anyways, yeah, it was a trip because there was a moment of doubt, I think, when that album came out, that maybe we were not writing as well as we could have. And then I feel
had you felt that with albums previously, or did that kind of come up the most with Dark Sun?
Probably the most with this one. You're always kind of nervous when you put something out, but Dark Sun was the first time I felt like I saw like consistent negative feedback with a decent amount of people. And like I said, I'm talking about maybe 20 comments total versus thousands that said it was a good thing. But I guess what I was getting to is just that I feel like this space we've had with the record is good, because I feel like in the year or year and a half that it's been out, I've been able to like let it breathe and just really appreciate that. I think it's a great record for what it was. And I'm excited for kind of what we're going to do next on our newer stuff,
Awesome. Yeah, man, I totally agree. And, I know it's in this day and age, it's so easy to hold on to those negative comments or that one, troll or whatever you want to call it. But to really step back and maybe have some time and space between, because here you are getting ready to hit the road and support the album with a headlining tour all over, the country. That speaks in and of itself, that speaks volumes. But let me say congrats on this, man. And, we're going to play Dream State tonight. And I know too, I have to imagine, I mean, I know that's a personal song for you, and I'm sure, most, if not all songs feel very personal to you in one way or another. But that's probably, that probably also adds to some of those negative comments, because you're sinking your heart and soul into these songs. And, they're more than just clocking in and clocking out. This is a personal effort for you, and Dream State, right, is definitely a personal one for you.
Yeah, I think that's why with Dark Sun especially, I took it to heart a bit more, because I wrote about half the album about my father's passing after a very long battle with cancer. And so it almost felt like it was insulting to him in a way. I don't know. I think once you realize it, I mean, I don't think people meant it in that way. I think they just, maybe thought the songs were too soft or too different from our last stuff. But I really started to realize that that album specifically, I think, is written for people who have dealt with like losing somebody too soon in their life. Like, I feel like I even saw comments from people who'd say, yeah, I tried to listen to it when it first came out and I didn't quite understand it. And then something like my mom or my dad passed away a few months later, and then I listened to it and I heard it in like an entirely different way. So it's I think it's a record it's for a very specific group of people for sure. But I'm still super proud of it. But you're right. I mean, I think I took the critique a little to heart initially, because a lot of these songs are just so personal to me.
Man, and what a contrast, right? Of talking about those just handful of negative comments you might get, but then also getting comments from people who are like, I connect with this on a level I never thought I could connect with, because I went through a tragedy, or because I went through a moment of suffering, or whatever that might be. I mean, that's such a contrast to the other side.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's why you have to remind yourself why you do these things in the first place. Because for me, music was always this catharsis and this way to escape. And so it was just, I think, seeing it come full circle in our career, that we get comments or messages from people who have just the nicest things to say about what our music has done to help them through a difficult time in their life. I think those comments and that feedback is so much more important than somebody who feels the need to tell you like your band sucks, like publicly on
Yes.
Instagram. So
Amen.
it's
Amen, man.
probably got to block out the bad stuff.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we could shift gears in a bit more positive of a way, but you've got a special guest on Dark Sun, Spencer Stewart of the band Camino. I think every album that Dayseeker has released has had at least one feature or special guest on it. I take it that you enjoy and the band enjoys kind of whether that's working with someone or inviting someone into that process. That's something that you find life from?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just fun to collaborate. And I think it adds just a different texture and a different layer to a song, obviously, that we couldn't do ourselves. So I've always been really happy with the features we've been able to get for the albums, especially we have like an acoustic album coming out. We got a handful of people that are some of my favorite singers in the scene. So I feel like we'll usually be working on something and I can just kind of hear like this would translate really well with somebody else singing other than myself. And then we kind of just reach out and see if they're down to collaborate.
Well, as a fan too, like I love hearing that, right? I love seeing those crossovers of a band I like inviting another band I like, or in some cases a band maybe I wasn't aware of, but because I trust you, right? I trust Dayseeker, and for them to invite someone into the studio or onto a track, and that just opens up a whole new world. And so it's really, I think, an exciting thing for fans to see that on the other side too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're thankfully these days they're very receptive of whatever we do. But we are lucky too that just a lot of the features we've gotten. I feel like we just had Caleb from Beartooth on a track, and it felt like there was a nice crossover of like a lot of mutual fans of both of our bands, and we have Lucas from Holding Absence on a track too, and it's just all this really cool crossover. So I always feel very lucky whenever we get the chance to collaborate with another artist.
What's the timeline on that acoustic album?
The acoustic album's called Replica, and it comes out April 19th. So we've put out a few songs for it so far. I think we have another one or two before it comes out, but yeah, it's cool, man. Just a collection of what we feel like is some of our better songs off our last two albums. And we just kind of redid them just like super stripped with acoustic piano and just vocals. But I'm really proud of it. Came out awesome.
Awesome. So, we've talked about this. You've got a ton of live shows planned this year, taking you well into July. I mean, I think, you'll be in Australia in July, actually, which is awesome. As you celebrate Dark Sun, as you hit the road, as you also, celebrate the release of Replica, this acoustic album, are you thinking about what's next for Dayseeker? Are you kind of the type of guy who's always looking ahead?
We're trying to. It's been a crazy time, because I feel like in the past it was like we were fighting to get touring opportunities, and now we have to say no or turn down some stuff. And I think we've had all of 2024 booked out for about a year, even before it happened. So we already know that we'll be out until probably mid-December, kind of off and on, of course. But somewhere in between all of this stuff we're doing, we are. I've been writing with awesome. a few different producers, and I think the plan is to try and have some newer music out before the end of the year that isn't the acoustic record, like actual new full band content. So I'm sure we'll have something put together, but it's definitely a lot. I think trying to balance our lives at home and our touring lives, and then also trying to make time to go and record and put out good content for our fans. So it's a busy time. I'd rather it be this way than you're fighting to get a tour and you might get one or two a year if you're lucky. It was brutal a few years ago, but we're, like I said, just very, very, very fortunate these days.
Yeah. No, I mean, what an amazing problem to have, right? To say no to tours and have to balance those kinds of things. Rory Rodriguez, thank you so much for hanging, man. Congrats on Dark Sun, Dayseeker's latest album. Congrats on the very soon release of Replica and all that's to come this year. You can grab all of Dayseeker's tour dates, ticket info, everything you need at dayseeker.band. Rory, we're going to have you back on the show soon, man, to celebrate what's to come.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it, man.
That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.